So, I hear you're flying solo.
It's time once again for another episode of Flying Solo, a podcast dedicated to discussions encompassing all aspects of the Star Wars universe.
I got a bad feeling about this.
And now, broadcasting from a room far away from his loving wife, Nikki.
That's what I'm talking about.
You're about to enter a territory possibly more unforgiving than a Sarlacc pit. You're now flying solo with your host, Steve-O Solo.
Welcome to episode 4. I can't believe I made it to 4 of these. Of the Flying Solo podcast with me, Steve-O Solo. Because, you know, I'm just a lonely man making his way around the galaxy. You know. Simple. But y'all ready for it? Are y'all ready for it? Because I think this is going to be a hot one.
Warning, Solo sucks rant. Warning, Solo sucks rant.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm actually been really nervous about this one. I'm not gonna lie. I was nervous about the first one. I've been nervous about every single one of these because, you know, sitting here doing a podcast by myself it could be a little nerve-wracking, could be a little nervous. But I've, for the most part, kept it pretty positive. For the most part, I haven't really gone too far on the negative, I feel like, but since I did the rankings on podcast episode 1 and I revealed why Return of the Jedi is my favorite, I have to explain why Solo is my least favorite. I have to talk about it. I did watch it yesterday. For the first time, I was able to get through the whole thing. For the first time since sitting in theaters and watching, I got through the whole thing for the first time. I've seen like a lot of bits and pieces of it because it's always on TV, but sat down for the first time and got through the whole movie. I took notes. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the movie. I'm on record saying it's a fun, exciting, entertaining movie. That is true. That is not false information. It is a really fun movie. It's just the worst Star Wars movie. And even after watching it and really enjoying it, my opinion hasn't really shifted. It's still at the bottom of my list, and we'll talk about it. I'll explain it. But I really did enjoy it. Even at points, Nikki was like, "Oh, that was fun." It's like, yeah, it is a fun. Like, just because I say it's the worst, like all the Star Wars movies are fun. I enjoy watching all of them. They all have their cringe moments. They all have moments of just, what was that? But they're all enjoyable. I love watching every single one of them. And just because I put it at the bottom of the list doesn't mean I think it's a bad movie. It's very enjoyable. It's a lot of fun. And when it comes to my movie rankings, I don't know if I expressed this before, but I'll say it again. My movie rankings are a lot more than just, is it the best movie? I don't just come up with a just generic explanation as to like, oh, this is number 1, this is number 11, I don't like it, I like this. I put more into it, and I make it very personal for myself. I really take into account how much emotion these movies give me. Are there any holy shit, I'm never going to forget that type moments in the movie? And how much does it add and connect the lore of Star Wars overall? Are there elements in this movie that, 1, you'll never forget, and 2, does it heighten and enhance the product? That is always kind of the questions I go into when I try to rank these movies, because I love all of them. I think there's a lot of bad within them, but I think, and I'll explain, I got a long list of stuff of what I'm going to talk about. And there is stuff I like in this movie very much. But, yeah, we're going to talk about it. And I'm actually nervous about it because I hate being negative about Star Wars. But before we do that, let's jump into some of the news and topical things that have happened since the last time we spoke. The first thing I'm going to talk about is probably the coolest thing, especially coming off of that Pablo Hidalgo bullshit. Mark Hamill tweeted something amazing last week. He saw specifically us. I mean, he specifically saw our reaction to it. If you don't know, we have a reaction channel, Nikki Steven React. But he saw everybody's reaction to it because there was a really, really dope compilation out there, and he saw it. And he tweeted, "No words. Seeing fans' reactions to Luke's return is something I will cherish forever. The anticipation of seeing the X-Wing, Episode 6 robes, a lightsaber, a green lightsaber, a gloved hand, an ungloved hand, a force choke, R2, overwhelming and very moving to see." That is what fans want to hear from the stars and the people responsible for this product. That was just so dope, seeing him appreciate and love the emotion that is coming from the fan base for Luke's return. That was so cool seeing him tweet that. And it made me, as someone who does reaction videos and someone who loves Star Wars with probably more than I maybe should, it was so nice to see Mark Hamill tweet that. He is the GOAT. He is the best. I love him. He is awesome. That is hashtag my Skywalker, my Luke. It was just so cool seeing him tweet that. And it's just coming off the Pablo Hidalgo stuff. It kind of brought more light back. It kind of like threw that bullshit out of the way. Mark Hamill saying what's up. And it was just fantastic to see the tweet, see the appreciation from Luke Skywalker himself. So cool. I absolutely love that. It's just, everyone who's a fan, everyone who is in that video, it's just, it makes you geek out even more, which is very, very cool. Mandalorian has recorded a new record. It was the most pirated show of 2020. That's a big deal. I would imagine that equals most popular show because it took the crown from Game of Thrones, which apparently held that title for nearly a decade, which I think that's a really fun conversation if The Mandalorian could even get into the same conversation as Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is my number one show of all time. It's my favorite TV show ever. I don't think there's much debate for me about what my favorite is. I think Breaking Bad is the best TV show ever created, but Game of Thrones is my favorite. It fits more along the genre of stuff that I enjoy overall. If the Mandalorian season 2 is my favorite season of TV, it's still there even after some time has passed. The recency bias I think might have worn off maybe a little bit until the next amazing season of TV pops up. But The Mandalorian season 2 was my favorite. And I really think if this show continues on the trajectory that it's on, and Favreau and Filoni continue to do what they're doing, I 100% think this show could overtake Game of Thrones as my favorite. It's gotta make sense all the way through because it's in between movies and it's got a challenge there. But season 2 of The Mandalorian is my favorite, and I think it could. Granted, season 1 was great. Season 2 is even better. We'll see where they go with season 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, hopefully. We'll see how far they go. But it could absolutely, for me personally, take over Game of Thrones. Just because Star Wars, it kind of gets that extra edge. I didn't grow up on Game of Thrones. I grew up on Star Wars. Star Wars is my favorite piece of content of all time across any genre. So I thought that was interesting. Most pirated show of 2020 goes to The Mandalorian. Way to go. Patty Jenkins, who directed Wonder Woman, 1984. I still haven't seen it. I've heard so many mixed reviews on it. But apparently she has nearly completed her Rogue Squadron movie story treatment, which, that's cool. I'm excited about that. And she said that it's going great and she's super excited about it. Obviously, we still don't know a whole bunch about that movie, but the fact that it's taking place in a, quote, future era, it's going to introduce a new generation of characters, that's what excites me the most. Is Wedge... I don't know if Wedge is going to be in that movie, but the idea of a new generation of characters, that's what I've been focused on and talking about for so long as a Star Wars fan. I want new. As much as I love the saga films and as much as I love the Skywalker trilogies and just that whole story, I'm ready to branch off and meet some new characters and tell some new stories, and especially on the big screen or on the television screen, because, you know, that's the TV and the streaming stuff is really elevated things in terms of storytelling. I feel like it's been absolutely amazing. Just what they could do. Essentially, we're getting like 10 episodes of a TV show is essentially a trilogy, which it's even a little longer, I think, depending on how long the episodes are. But I really love the idea of a story being fleshed out through a TV series versus the big screen, to be honest. Like, Mandalorian has kind of shifted my opinion on that, because I've always been like, oh, Obi-Wan's got to be a movie. It's got to be a movie. But if we're going to get a handful of 40-minute episodes, that sounds fantastic to me. So this whole idea of getting new and developing new worlds, new characters, new stories, that excites me so much. And that just leads right into the last thing. The first 2 Star Wars High Republic novels are out. I think today is the actual date, the 5th. I think they are actually out, the first 2 books. And this is another thing. I'm not much of a book reader. I've only read one Star Wars book, and I really enjoyed it. But I'm not much of a reader, and I don't really have time to sit around and read books. When I used to have a commute to work, you know, the audio worked really well. But these stories take place centuries prior to the Phantom Menace, and it takes us back to the prime of the Jedi Order. That sounds so cool. And it sounds like something that I would actually want to try to invest some time into listen to, because I'm not going to read it. But I'll totally check out if I find time to do it. Like the Star Wars High Republic novels, those look really cool. They look really, really cool. And, you know, I'm all about consuming good new content, because it's a hot time to be a Star Wars fan. Star Wars is popping right now. That's why I'm kind of nervous about the direction that I'm taking this podcast, because get the reasons why out of the way and just, you know, talk about happy things. Because, I mean, I'm also a really firm believer that you are critical of the things you love most. If you can't be critical about it, like, what's the deal with that? Like, I love the idea of being able to be critical of the things that you love, because if you didn't love it, you wouldn't care, and there'd be no reason to be upset if it didn't turn out the way you wanted it. You know what I mean? I'm a huge believer in being able to criticize the things that you love. And criticizing it doesn't mean that you hate it. It doesn't mean you don't love it. It doesn't mean that you don't enjoy it. It just means that there are certain flaws. You know, and everything's got it. Nothing is perfect. Everything could be critiqued. And this idea that, like, yeah, it's at the bottom of my list, but it's still a fun movie. It's still enjoyable. I actually had a really good time watching it yesterday. So, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where just because someone ranks it low doesn't mean it's bad. You know what I mean? Solo, a Star Wars story. Is it the worst Star Wars movie of the group? I still say yes, despite really, really, really enjoying it. I watched it again. I enjoyed it so much more than I did in theaters. I enjoyed it so much more than my other attempts trying to get through it. It's on TV a lot for me. It's on cable a lot. So I'll always turn it on and watch for as long as I can wherever it is. I've seen so much of it, and I really, really enjoyed it. And that's not at all an indication of whether it's good or bad. I think it's a good movie. I think it's a fun movie. The way I view it, and it goes into emotion, it goes into how much has it added to the Star Wars lore. Did it hurt anything from the Star Wars lore? And that's the kind of stuff that I go into with my rankings on. It's not always about if I think it's good or bad. If I just based it off of what's good and bad, Empire Strikes Back would be my number one movie, but it's not. Return of the Jedi is, for a lot of very iconic moments that hit me in a very, very special way. And I've kind of talked about a lot of this already, just that it's fun, because it is. Like, the action sequences and the adventures that they go on are so much fun. And a lot of my mindset with this kind of stuff is storytelling. I'm all about, I'm hardcore about story. I love storytelling. I love good storytelling. I love talking about poor storytelling. I love stories. And the biggest challenge that a story like Solo has is that it's a prequel. It's not a standalone. It's not the first of its kind. No one's going to go and start watching Star Wars for their very first time and watch Solo first. You're not going to watch it before A New Hope. You're not going to watch it before Episode 1. You're not going to watch it first. So the idea that it's a prequel automatically gives it story challenges right off the bat. It adds things that we never see again. It presents character traits that we don't see anywhere else. And in my eyes, that hurts the story. That hurts certain characters. That presents question marks. Anytime you're watching something and it presents a question and it never gets answered, that's bad. I personally think that's bad. If I see something and it never gets brought up again on a prequel or a sequel, it never gets brought up again, that's bad. That you don't want people acknowledging questions, which is the reason why any prequel is always really, really challenging. For me, watching it again, it still doesn't offer anything worth being excited about. There's nothing in it that says, ooh, I'm going to go rewind to this part of Solo and watch that. It doesn't have that. It just shows us things that we already knew existed. And the stuff that we didn't know existed hasn't been mentioned again. And as far as I've seen, there are no plans to acknowledge some of that stuff. The Kessel Run, Han meeting Chewie, Han meeting Lando, the Sabacc game where Han wins the Falcon, fair and square. All of that stuff we knew about. It's not stuff that I was ever clamoring that I needed to see it play out on screen. It's just not one of those things where it's like, I really wish I could have seen Han and Lando play Sabacc. Like, it was fun to see it play out. Their interaction was cool. It was enjoyable. But it doesn't add anything to me like Rogue One did, for example. Now, I took notes. I kind of took notes in chronological order. And some things will obviously have more discussion. Some things will have very quick discussion. But I'm going to highlight the stuff that I thought was good, highlight some of the stuff that I thought was bad, and some of the stuff that's just giant question mark. And, right off the bat, this movie punches you in the face with these dice. What are these dice? Oh yeah, we saw them in the sequel movie. We saw it in The Last Jedi. These dice. And apparently they were sitting in the Falcon in A New Hope. I feel like this entire movie was created to highlight the dice. Han takes them from every vehicle that he rides in, and he puts them up on his little rearview mirror. Everywhere he goes. And then when it's time for him and Qi'ra to kind of go do their thing, he gives them to her for luck. So they're clearly an important piece of memorabilia for him that brings him luck. It's just one of those things that just gets jammed into a prequel that doesn't make any sense that they would do that in a prequel. It goes back to the whole sequel thing. We see them as something important in a prequel, and it's never brought up ever again. Don't you think Han would have wanted to take them off the Falcon and take them on the ride with him in Return of the Jedi? When he gave the Falcon back to Lando to go do that super dope fight, wouldn't he take them with him? These are good luck. I want them. I'm going to take them with me. That doesn't happen. That's the question mark that I bring up. You see it happen in a prequel movie that comes out many years later. And then as you're watching Return of the Jedi, be like, Han, you forgot your dice. Don't you want the dice? Aren't they lucky? Don't you want them while you go on this really big mission to go save the entire galaxy? I don't know. That's the kind of stuff I think about. That's where my head goes when these type of things pop up in these movies. Inserting something as valuable and important, and they're clearly important. He gave them to Qi'ra, who we saw had a very close relationship. Han very much was in love with her. And he gave them to her to protect her and to give her luck. That's a question mark. The next really big thing that pops up in this movie is his name. I hate to use the word hate, as I just used it twice. It drives me crazy the more I watch this scene. Every time I see it, it just drives me more crazy. Before I go on that giant rant, let me just say I feel really bad for Alden Ehrenreich. He was put in a really tough position. Not only did he have to portray Han Solo, one of the greatest characters in the history of cinema. Harrison Ford is iconic. But he had to do it while Harrison Ford was still playing Han Solo. That's tough. I don't care who you are. That is a tall task. The reason why Ewan McGregor playing Obi-Wan worked so much, Alec Guinness was the biggest name in Star Wars. I personally don't know him because I'm not that old. I'm old, but I'm not that old. But the reason why Ewan McGregor works so well as Obi-Wan is because it was so many years later. It's so hard to ask an actor to play the character of one of the most iconic roles ever while that actor is still in that role. That's a difficult ask for anybody. So I feel for Alden Ehrenreich. I don't think he did a terrible job. I think part of the reason why I don't have that emotional attachment to it is the idea that that's not my Han Solo. That's tough. But the name. It was made into a joke. Han Solo was turned into a joke. I don't know what the plan was for that line. I don't know what the plan was for that scene, the script. I don't know what the intent was. But to me, it 100% felt like failed comedy. It was a failed joke that is now forever linked to one of the greatest characters ever. That is canon. That is not going away, and I don't think anything should be erased from canon. I think there's a way to enhance stuff. But the fact that, like, and it's not just how he got his name. It's my displeasure of it goes so much deeper than just, oh, hey, he was standing there by himself. That's how he got his name. That's dumb, in my opinion. I think it's a terrible joke. I think it's a terrible way for him to... Look, he clearly went through a lot of shit and clearly had a broken relationship with his family. Show it. Give me a reason to feel emotional about the line that I have no people. That's a powerful line. But we don't have any backstory to support why. And I mean, I don't know how it works in the Star Wars universe, but if I'm looking at like a resume, or if I'm filling out a form and someone doesn't give me their last name, I don't ask them who their people are. That's just me. But hey, what's your last name? That's just me. My issue with the name is this. The dude was signing up to be a pilot for the Empire. Han Solo wanted to be a pilot. Shocking. He's a fantastic pilot. Of course, he wanted to have ambitions of being a pilot. An Imperial officer gave him the name Solo. You're standing there all by yourself. Okay, whatever. Lame joke. But then the question marks for me start popping up. This dude had a horrible experience with the Empire. He got kicked out of flight school, got put in infantry, got thrown into mud and war, and had a horrible experience with the Empire. 3 years of his life. That's a long time. He's going to keep that name? That name should mean nothing to him. If anything, it should be a negative. Every time I hear the name Han Solo, it should be a negative in my head. He proceeds to have a phenomenal career as a smuggler. The best one ever. I don't know if it's good to be the most popular smuggler, but he was. He was the best. Who's he running jobs against? Who's in charge of the galaxy that he's working all these smuggling jobs for? The Empire. Who probably knows who Han Solo, like, they might not know who he is, but wouldn't a smart smuggler want to change his name so that his name wasn't on record? I don't know, I would. That's just me. My primary job is a smuggler, and I'm going to keep the name I'm going to run jobs against the Empire who gave me the name. That isn't my family name, so it doesn't mean anything to me. And I had a horrible experience with the Empire, but I'm going to keep the name. And not only does he keep the name, he passes it on to his son, Ben Solo. One of the comments says, no, you wiped the records. Did he? We don't know that. Where's that quote? There's really easy ways for him to continue working with that name, and someone in chat made it really simple. That's a 2-second line you throw in a movie. Why have the question? It brings up such a silly question. The galaxy is run by the Empire. He was given a fake name by the Empire, and he's a smuggler in this universe that is controlled by the Empire. I wouldn't go by the same name. And I sure as hell wouldn't pass it on to my kid. It's just one of those things that, again, you're troubled with a prequel situation. And I talk about this a lot. There are some things in the Star Wars universe that's just better left unsaid and unknown. And I feel like if that's the route you were going to go with his name, I didn't need to know why Han Solo was named Han Solo. I didn't need to know that. There's a lot of things that I don't need to know. I don't need to know what Yoda's species is. I don't need to know. I like a little bit of mystery. That's what made Boba Fett so cool, was his mystery. And now that mystery is going to get erased because we're going to get a whole show for him, which could be cool and fun. I'm definitely excited for it. But some things, when you pull that curtain down and you reveal everything, it's sometimes not always as good as it should be, or as good as you think it could be. And I don't know anybody. I like, if there's someone in the live chat right now who thinks that they like the way Han Solo got his name, I would love to hear from you, because I haven't heard one person who was like, oh yeah, that's cool. That is so dope how Han Solo got his name. I haven't heard that once. And the people who like Solo kind of just brush it off. Like, oh, it's fine. But it's not, in my opinion. If I didn't think there was anything more silly than how Han Solo got his name, Han's meeting of Chewie might top that, to be honest. Their meeting does not land with me at all. It was cool and sweet and fun, but not based off of the story they told us. And again, we're in a prequel situation here. A Wookiee is locked up as a prisoner there to kill those who break the rules. I guess it was confirmed that he didn't officially ever eat anyone, but that's a weird thing to say for the guards to be like, oh, he hasn't eaten in a few days. I don't know, that's weird. But this monster comes roaring out of the shadows, ready to kill Han Solo. Throws him around a little bit. Like, smashes him up against the pole. Like, I don't know how he stayed awake after that, but Han Solo's tough. But this motherfucker speaks Sherrywook and he stops. Really? He speaks Wookiee and Chewbacca just stops killing him because that's an immediate bond of trust? Question mark? And let's be honest, hearing him speak in Chewie's language was ridiculous. It sounded ridiculous. But apparently just speaking someone's language prevents you from wanting to kill them. And that's fine. That's not part of my big issue. I just think it's funny. It made me laugh that that's all you have to do to stop a monster from killing you. Luke could have used that in Return of the Jedi. Dude, just speak the monster's language. Hey, I can get you out, I promise! Oh, I'm going to trust you. You're going to get me out. Okay, cool. My issue with Han Solo speaking Sherrywook in Solo is the fact that we never hear him speak it again. Solo lives in the middle of the timeline. It leads into 6 movies. Not once. Even in Solo. He doesn't do it again in Solo. Not once does Han say anything to Chewie in his native language? There are just so many touching moments between Han and Chewie where, for me personally, and this is how, like, again, this is how my brain operates. Now that you've presented the idea that Han could speak this language and communicate directly with Chewie, there are so many moments where Han could have spoken to Chewie. Maybe they're trying to work a plan, maybe a farewell, maybe I don't know, use it for strategy. While Chewie's losing his mind about Han Solo getting put in carbonite and possibly never seeing him again, maybe instead of just saying, Chewie, you need to take care of the princess in basic, why not say something in Sherry Wook to calm him down? To give him the reassurance that everything's going to be okay. That's where my mind goes. But again, it's a prequel effect. You insert something into a prequel and then never hear about it once again, ever again, creates story holes. I do really appreciate the relationship, and that is a really good moment once they're kind of all cleaned up and out of the shit. The like, that's a really, really nice moment. They love each other. Obviously, they love each other. And it is, again, it's cool to see that relationship start. I don't think it necessarily enhances anything. It's not, again, it's one of those things where I didn't necessarily need to know how they met. And again, the way they did it made me really wish I didn't. Like, it's just the way it goes. The train heist was fun. Who doesn't love a good train heist? What an adventure that was, huh? But here's the problem. From a storytelling perspective, there was no suspense. Not sure if it was the way it was executed or the writing or the way we went into it. I didn't feel an ounce of concern or worry at all. And there's a show out there. That's a prequel. I won't say anything or spoil anything for y'all. I'll just give you BCS. That's all I'll say. But there are characters in that show that you know live on. And there are moments where the audience feels scared shitless for them. There is anxiety for the character. There is worry, like, holy shit, what is going to happen? I didn't feel that once during this super dangerous train heist. They even teased Han and Chewie's deaths on this thing. I kind of laughed. I was like, that was funny. They just teased Chewie getting his head knocked off. Oh, well, maybe that wasn't the original Chewie. But there's ways to go about doing something like that, and I don't know why I didn't feel any of that. There was, like, it was really fun. It was exciting. The adventure was super cool. But what was at stake? The stakes in terms of the story within Solo were high, but as a viewer, I didn't feel it. Val and Rio die. That sucks. But we didn't spend enough time with them to care. It's not like Beckett was that upset. He kind of moved on pretty easily. He had his eye on the prize. He had a job to do. But losing characters in that moment has to mean something, and it didn't. And I know they wanted it to mean something. Like, Rio was funny. But who cares? There was no attachment. It's just, yeah. I don't know. Tobias Beckett. Really, really fun character. Woody Harrelson it was fun to see Woody in Star Wars. I like Woody Harrelson. I think he's great. But we all knew what the hell was going to happen to him. His ending was inevitable. I do like that we got to meet Han's mentor. That is cool. I think that's an enhancement in the Star Wars universe. If I was to ask a question about Han Solo, I would love to know who taught him his ways. That's a cool thing. See, not everything is negative. Never trust anyone, he taught Han. I thought that was overall pretty cool. But again, it falls into the same issues that Rogue One has. You kind of know the fate. It's kind of obvious what's going to happen. Seeing Woody in Star Wars was fun, but overall, like, his character was predictable. But I did like seeing Han's mentor and kind of meeting him. That was kind of fun. Donald Glover is the best part of this movie. Hands down, no question about it. For me, there's no debate that Lando, portrayed by Donald Glover, was spectacular. I do feel a little bit of the character development was questionable, though. The writing of the character was harmful to the character we see in the original trilogy. Maybe. Look, love who you want. I will never question anybody's decision. Whatever makes you happy makes you happy. But Lando Calrissian is the most charismatic dude in the galaxy. And his relationship with L3, questionable. Because again, we have so much history and character development and character traits for these characters that go years and years and years. Maybe I need to go back and watch Empire Strikes Back. But I don't recall Lando having too much of a romantic connection with any other droids. Everyone loves Lando. Everybody loves Lando. So it makes sense. But not even that. And this is another one that this jumped out to me that I need to go back and watch. But in the first Sabacc game, where Lando beats Han and where they meet for the first time, which is a really fun interaction. That first meeting was great. But we walk away from that scene that Lando Calrissian's a cheater? That he cheats? Again, he's the most charismatic dude around. Does he need to cheat? I know he betrayed Han in Return of the Jedi. But dealing with Darth Vader and cheating in a card game, I think are two very, very different things. And I never viewed Lando as a cheater. I don't know if that's a character trait that we want to attach to this guy. I didn't like that. He did what he had to do to get by in the galaxy. If Darth Vader shows up at your front door and tells you you're going to do something, you're probably going to do it. Even if it's against your better judgment and might hurt your friends. You're probably going to do what Darth Vader says. Just an assumption. But the track record there that he had the card up his sleeve and he had the apparatus shows me that he earned everything by cheating. That's why I need to go back. Someone in the chat says, did he cheat to get Cloud City? That's why I need to go back and watch. Because I never got the vibe that he was like a cheater. Live chat. Sometime after gambling away his starship, the Millennium Falcon, the young smuggler Lando Calrissian gambled big and won control of Cloud City. Wikipedia says Lando did win Cloud City. which immediately tells me that he cheated to win. Now. But it doesn't say that he cheated. So now we can confirm that he's a cheater and that he cheated to win Cloud City. Are we on the same page there? Is that fair? Because if that's the truth, if it doesn't, like, if this is, this is actually getting me a little riled up right now. If, that's why I wanted to go back and revisit that. It's something I didn't get a chance to research before the podcast. If they inserted him to be a cheater when he wasn't, he gambled big. But the track record in Solo shows that when you... this sucks! Every time he gambled big in Solo, there were only 2 moments, but both times he cheated for the card. He went for the card up his sleeve. Lando Calrissian is not a fucking cheater. That bothers me. That's what I'm talking about, hurting the legacy of iconic characters. He's charismatic. Like, he could be an amazing card player because he's charismatic. You're not allowed to pick and choose your canon. That's a rant that I could say for later if you want. Fans don't have the right or entitlement to pick canon. I can't erase from my memory, I'm just going to pretend that in Solo he lost fair and square. That he didn't try to go for the card up his sleeve. You don't get to make that choice. I don't get to erase that from the history books. That just takes the movie down a whole nother notch. Another comment from chat. I always perceived Lando to have flexible ethics, but so did Han. Yeah, they're smugglers. But the idea of him pulling a card up his sleeve to win everything that he has, that's pushing it for me. That pushes it for me. That hits a certain line. I don't know. The Kessel run was fun. It's not really what I was expecting. Maybe that's my fault. But again, no suspense. We kind of knew what happened. Or was going to happen. There was a moment where it looked like the ship was going to get eaten. But, I mean, were any of us actually worried that was going to happen? I wasn't. And I always tried to avoid expectations on stuff. But I think my expectation of what the Kessel run was might have ruined it for me personally. I think that's a me problem. I don't know if others felt the same way. But another one of those, I know exactly what the end game is on this. They get out and he sets the record. I don't know. It was another one of those really fun, adventurous, exciting moments of the movie. Fun. But not anything, again, after seeing it play out, it's not something that I necessarily needed to see on screen. For me personally. Kessel Run was fun, though. So, I got 2 more things. Well, kind of 3 more things. Qi'ra, Maul, Crimson Dawn. Actually, I got a bunch. I got 4 more things. I'm just kidding. I'm lying to you guys. The Qi'ra, Maul, Crimson Dawn storyline, which I thought was by far the most intriguing thing in this whole movie. When this movie ended, I was like, I need more of that. I want to know what they're doing. I thought Maul's appearance was comical, but I get why they did it the way they did it. We got a full body hologram so that we could see his robot legs. And then, of course, he had to grab his saber and strike it. Because the casual Star Wars fan had absolutely no clue he was alive. They watched this dude die in episode 1. Sliced in half, done. Deuces. The casual fan's not watching Clone Wars or Rebels to know that he's still alive. I thought that was like over the top. I didn't think they needed to do all that. But their relationship, Qi'ra and Maul, that's still, after all these years, after watching it again, that is the most intriguing thing. I don't need a Solo 2. I really hope they don't do a Solo 2. But when the time is right, maybe we'll get a Qi'ra Maul Crimson Dawn thing going. I think that could be really cool. Maul should have kept his spider body. Yeah. That would have confused the people even more. Qi'ra became a really interesting character at the end because she could fight. What exactly is her role? And what is this relationship with Maul going to look like? Another comment from chat. To your point, that storyline would add to the... Yes, it would! 100% that would add to the universe. But we haven't heard a peep since this movie came out about any of that. That's the problem. There's something else that I'm going to talk about at the last thing that I talk about, which also fits along those lines. But a Qi'ra Maul spinoff, just like a 4 or 5 episode thing, connecting Maul with the animated series, giving us Qi'ra, who's a new character, some more depth and more story. I think that could be fantastic. I don't need... Solo 2 is A New Hope. Let's just go with that. I remember going into this movie with a certain expectation about what I wanted to see and what I was hoping for by the end. And at the end, it felt like we were getting there because Han Solo kills his partner, his mentor, kills him, beats him to the draw, boom, makes the right decision. Han totally shot first. There's no debate there. The love of his life flies away. She's gone. She chooses a different life than being with him. But Han wins the Falcon. He goes back to see Lando. He stumps him from his cheating ways, that horrible Lando Calrissian. Wins the Falcon. And the final shot of this fucking movie is the dice. Just to let us know that those are the same dice that were in A New Hope, that no one ever noticed. I really wanted to see the Han that we see in A New Hope by the end of this movie. And I personally feel like it never happened. Despite all of what happened, he still felt like a bubbly, enthusiastic kid playing scoundrel. That conversation with Qi'ra about him being a bad, like, that was almost like she was laughing. It's like, you're not a, like, are you kidding, Han? You would think he would have been a little more grumpy after killing his buddy, his partner, his mentor, and then watching the love of his life fly away. But instead, this dude's enthusiastic and happy to be going to Tatooine. No one's happy to go to Tatooine. And he's going to go work some jobs for Jabba. I don't know. It just didn't end on the note that I was expecting. And yes, there are many more years before A New Hope, but I don't need to see what Luke was doing. Or Han. I don't need to see what Han was doing. That's just me. And the fact that the last shot was the dice kind of solidified my opinion. that this movie was created to, like, hey, these dice. You saw them in The Last Jedi. But the last thing I want to hit on is Infant's Nest. Another massive, and I heard something, like researching for today's podcast, I found something that really irks me. There's a few things that really irk me, and what I found out today is one of those things. She seemed dope. But it hits you with the prequel effect again. The last thing we see from her is this idea that she's going to go fight for the rebellion. This rebellion, it's starting. We're doing this rebellion. We don't ever see her again, though. Rogue One and A New Hope are both movies geared around the rebellion and fighting the Empire. And we never see her again. Where is she? I'll tell you where she is, because the Solo novel tells you. I don't think she was in Rebels. In the book, Nest actually meets with Saw Gerrera and hands over the coaxium. Is that what it's called? How do you put that in the book and not in the movie? Put it in Rogue One. If she's going to be in a spinoff, that's fantastic, because I want more of that. I'm gonna acknowledge another comment. Solo came out after Rogue One, dude. Which means that their storytelling's not connected. They're inserting characters into movies that screws up the storytelling. That's my point. On the timeline, Solo comes first. But the fact that, and Star Wars does this a lot. Another show that we watch over on the Reaction channel, The Walking Dead, is starting to do this. They're planting seeds to fill gaps in other content. This was the lowest grossing movie in Star Wars history. I can't imagine that there was a rush to the bookstore to read the novel. If Infant's Nest was a character that they wanted to feature at any point during this whole Disney era, she needed to be in Rogue One. Her not being in Rogue One, again, brings up question marks that are never good. Where is she? And if they're going to do a spinoff, cool. They're taking a hell of a long time to announce that. But it's just one of those things where it's hard to fully criticize something until it's over. But until something is announced, it's over. So as of now, this story is over. We don't have that much time to lead into Rogue One. Maybe we'll meet her in the Cassian Andor show. I don't know. Maybe. That would probably be a really smart play to connect those dots. I'm just looking at the timeline of stuff here. I hate when stories leave massive question marks and giant gaps in the story, especially when they're intriguing ones. I really like the potential of this character. She was really intriguing, really cool, and had a great message. But she's connected to something huge when two movies focus on that huge focus. And she's not around. If a movie requires me to read the book, it's just bad. Even if it's a book adaptation. Be your own good story. 100%. I feel that way too. Which kind of presents a tangent for me. Because I stumbled upon this video of Kathleen Kennedy talking about how the plan all along was to have Palpatine show up at the end of the sequel trilogy. But then there's video of Daisy Ridley talking about how that was completely false and not true, and they had no idea who her parentage was going to be at all. Like, it got flip-flopped even while working on The Last Jedi. But in the book, I don't know if y'all know this, but in the book for The Force Awakens, the Emperor speaks to Rey and tells her to kill Kylo Ren. That wouldn't have been the terrible thing to put in the movie. It's simple things that fill the gap that could be a one-liner in a movie that could just flesh out certain things for me. Books will forever be a thorn in the side of TV shows and movies, because books are always going to be better. There's no budget on a book. I could write the craziest, insane dragon fight scene in the history of the world. It's not going to cost anything for me to write it into words. Books are always going to have that extra. And from the conversations I've had with people, the Game of Thrones books are better than the show. The Harry Potter books are better than the movies. Lord of the Rings books better than the movies. Pretty much any book is going to be better than the show or movie that it's based off of, just because of that freedom. But when it comes to a simple, like, Rey fighting out in the forest, you could easily just throw Ian McDermott's voice in there and be like, kill him. That's simple. Adding Nest, a 2-minute scene in Rogue One or at the end of Solo, would have given it so much more understanding. And the fact that I heard that happened in the book was just... There's a lot that happens in books that I don't even bat an eye at. But something like that I feel like would enhance the main product. It's the main product. You need to enhance the main product. I feel like you have to include certain things. And when I hear about them being in the novels and it's short, simple, and I'm in production, I know how it works. I know even a 2-minute scene requires a lot of effort and work. But I understand that the product, and maybe I'm the only one who questions, maybe I'm the only one who's like, where the fuck is Infant's Nest? What happened to this person? They're talking about the rebellion, and we have all this content about rebellions, and we never, ever see her ever again. Maybe I'm the only one who thinks like that. I don't know. Maybe it's a problem I have. Who knows? But that's where my brain goes. All of that is why I feel like Solo is the worst of the Star Wars movies. I like the movie very much. I had a blast watching it yesterday. It was fun. It's just in terms of adding to the lore of Star Wars, and we haven't seen it yet. It's possible for it to happen. But as of right now, there's nothing in this movie that makes me want to be like, ooh, that was cool. I want to go back and see that. And there are those moments in The Phantom Menace and The Clone Wars and Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi. I have moments, and I feel like all those other movies that are at the bottom of my list all have something that adds to the overall Star Wars universe. I don't feel it right now, and maybe that could change. Maybe that's something that could change. The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, they're two movies that are terrible in terms of the Star Wars. I still find them fun. I'll watch them 100%. But we get Darth Maul's introduction, Episode 1. That alone makes it better than Solo. The pod race is something I'll never forget. That is one of those moments that I will go back and watch that pod race because that shit was fun as hell. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, we see the deterioration of Anakin Skywalker. Watching him crumble and lose sight of what's important while he thinks he's focusing on what is important, and watching him just turn evil makes it so much better than Solo, in my opinion. That I feel like I always say, like, I feel like episode 2 should be episode 1. Anakin should have been episode 2 age in episode 1. I didn't need to see Anakin as a child, but they had to introduce midichlorians and that his mom gave birth by immaculate conception. But there's nothing in Solo that makes me want to be like, ooh, I want to go back and watch that Darth Maul scene. It's like, oh, I want to go back and watch the Kessel Run. Like, I don't. Well, I'm gonna go watch the Sabak. Like, no, like I don't ever say that. And The Last Jedi does damage, for sure. But it's still got Kylo Ren. Luke Skywalker is my favorite character ever. And what happened to him in that movie is disgraceful, in my opinion. I still think there's enough that pumps up the Star Wars universe in that movie that puts it above Solo. Because I feel like Solo hurts two characters and literally offers nothing as of now. Kylo Ren's one of my favorite characters in all of Star Wars. And his progression from The Force Awakens all the way to the Rise of Skywalker is fantastic to me. He's got the only coherent story, I feel like, through the whole trilogy. That alone puts it above Solo for me. That's why. As much as I love Luke and would argue George Lucas himself to my grave, I don't believe ever Luke Skywalker would do any of that stuff. And I am still on record that there are ways that they could have told the story to make that feel more real. I talked about it before on this podcast. Why did Anakin's turn in Revenge of the Sith feel so powerful? Because we saw him killing younglings. It wasn't just a word spoken in the movie. It wasn't just Yoda telling Obi-Wan, like, oh, hey, he killed these younglings. We see him do it. We see the aftermath of Luke's academy, but we don't know the impact of that. We didn't see one of his students ever. We don't know what happened there. So the idea that I'm just seeing Luke upset without full context isn't going to ever make me believe that he would run away. Especially run away to a Jedi temple to disconnect from the Force. But if you show, like, I know Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks. I mean, Rian Johnson decided to insert flashbacks because, you know, Rian Johnson does whatever Rian Johnson wants. Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks. But giving us a moment in the act or a dream. Luke having a dream of his students getting slaughtered. I would still argue that Luke Skywalker wouldn't do what he did, but it would break my argument down a little bit more. That's the power of visual. Don't just tell me Luke's students got killed by Kylo Ren and that made Luke run away and hide. I don't know about y'all. I need to see the act if something as drastic as what Luke did is going to happen. That's me. That's the storytelling aspect of things that I like to approach these stories with. And that's kind of my overall thought. That's why Solo is at the bottom of the list. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie. It doesn't mean I don't think it's fun. I actually really, really enjoyed it. It's a fun movie. It's just within the context of Star Wars, it's not my... It's the bottom of the list. So we've come to the time of the podcast where... Can you guys get me ranting? Solo's better than Rogue One? I said an hour on why that's not the case. Sir Metal Knight, do you think if Qui-Gon Jinn survived that Anakin wouldn't have turned like he did since Qui-Gon was the father figure? Ooh, that's a tough question. I want to say he would still turn because the influence the Emperor had and Anakin's ultimate goal of protecting the people that he loved. I think the Emperor would have still been able to get to him. I think it would have been different. I still think Anakin turns just because the Emperor is so powerful. As much as I love Qui-Gon. I mean, it's too bad Obi-Wan didn't know how to force heal anyone. He could have saved Qui-Gon. And yeah, it was his fate. He was meant to be the one to bring balance to the Force, and that's ultimately what happened. Here's a good question about Rogue One. If you take away Vader's scene at the end, would it be as good as it is considered? For me personally, absolutely not. That would, if you take Vader out, it drops that movie down many rungs. The Vader scene, with the exception of what we just got in Mandalorian, is one of my all-time favorite scenes in Star Wars. The space battle in the final act is probably my favorite space battle. So it would still have that, but it would probably slip into the bottom 5, to be honest. The story, like, I struggle with a lot of that story just because we know what happens to everyone. But there's emotion attached there. Like, that movie gets to me because of what it leads to. Like, there's still a lot of emotion for me in Rogue One, even without Vader. Just because you know what it leads to. And I feel like that's big. I mean, Leia still connects the OT with Rogue One. So there'd still be that connective tissue. But the Vader scene, it's more than just Vader just mowing down rebels and just being OP Vader that we've been begging for. It just shows the dire panic that he brought to people and how important these plans were. They had to get the plans out. And there was just the way it was shot, the dialogue, the actors, the rebels, they did such a good job of just showing us that fear and just how much was at stake. It's more than Vader just slicing some fool, like raising a guy to the ceiling and slicing him down, which was super dope. It was just this overall scene that just heightened what was at stake for everything that led into A New Hope, which just enhances that movie alone so much. All right, everybody. It looks like that'll be a wrap for episode 4. We've done 4 of these. That's exciting. Let's see. Now that I've gotten kind of the bulk of the original content that I wanted to do done, let's see where this goes. What other content I could come up with. I'll probably let you guys know on Discord what the next topic is going to be. I have some ideas, but if anyone ever does have ideas, there is a Star Wars dedicated channel over on Discord. You could join the Sticker Fam. If you're listening or watching this somewhere else, there's links to that down below. Great place for us to talk Star Wars. If you got ideas for the podcast, I would love to do an explanation on why the Luke stuff doesn't land for me. I don't know if I want to do back-to-back negative podcasts, though. I could rank my favorite characters. I could rank my favorite villains. There's lots of stuff. There's lots of options. There's a lot to be very excited about for Star Wars, so I'm excited for it. I appreciate everyone who has joined me so far on this journey. To the live crowd over on Twitch, I love y'all very much. Y'all are the best. If you're listening on any of the 4,500 different audio platforms that you can listen to podcasts, leave a like, leave a comment, rate this biatch, and let me know what you guys think. And if you're on YouTube, leave comments down below. Always, what do you think? Where do you want this to go? Why isn't Solo the worst movie in the Star Wars universe? Share away. Just be nice about it. I'm all up for debate and opinions. I love everyone's opinions because the world would be a boring place without opinions. Just present it properly and we could talk about it. Until next time, we'll be back next week, episode 5. Hope everyone has a fantastic day, night, morning, wherever you are. And I'll catch you guys later. And as always, may the Force be with you. Always.